Everyone knows the Gu couple dotes on their daughter. But little did they know she was a fake heiress. Switched at birth. When I, the true bloodline, was found and brought home, I wasn't greeted with a reunion filled with familial love. Instead, I received a bank card with 100,000 yuan deposited monthly and a plane ticket to a faraway land across the ocean. My biological parents used the most dignified way to clear the battlefield for their pampered daughter. They thought money could fill the void of those missing years. Could buy back their inner peace. I accepted it, along with the occasional comfort money they sent during holidays. I saved every penny. For 7 years in a foreign country, I focused solely on studying. Gnawing on bread. I spent countless nights in the library and made my first forays into the capital market. Until Gu Jiaojiao was pregnant with her third child. And my mother called, urging me to come back at least once. I smiled and refused, saying I was busy. The silence on the other end of the phone told me the time was almost ripe. They would never imagine that the quiet, easily dismissed daughter they sent away years ago had sharpened her claws. The guilt they piled up with money would eventually become the stepping stones for me to reclaim everything the Gu family owes me. And it's time to collect with interest. The plane smoothly landed in the city I hadn't seen for 7 years. 7 years ago, I was brought back to this bustling metropolis. Back to the Gu family's luxurious but cold villa. Back then, I was emaciated, with rough skin, carrying an incongruous timidity and rusticity. The first glance my biological parents gave me was filled with shock, scrutiny, and a hint of undisguised disappointment. Their ideal daughter probably looked like Gu Jiaojiao, even in the simplest school uniform. She exuded a nurtured radiance and arrogance. Her manners were proper, her speech elegant, like a precious orchid carefully cultivated in a greenhouse, while I was like a tenacious but unremarkable weed by the roadside. Jieli, this is your home now. My biological mother's tone was gentle, but her words carried a sense of distance. Jiaojiao has been raised by our side for so many years, and we have a deep bond. Be considerate of her. What she has, we won't let you lack. Won't let me lack was specifically manifested in material terms. My room was arranged in the most secluded room on the 3rd floor. Spacious and luxurious, but far inferior to Gu Jiaojiao's suite on the 2nd floor with a rooftop balcony and a walk-in closet. Every month, 100,000 yuan of pocket money would be deposited into my account. 20,000 yuan more than Gu Jiaojiao's. At first, I thought it was compensation. Later, I realized it was hush money, the price for not disturbing our family of three's happiness. Gu Jiaojiao, the fake heiress, lived up to her name, delicate and artificial. She always intimately linked her arm with Mrs. Gus, sweetly calling her mommy and Mr. Gu daddy. Then, when no one was looking, she would give me a look filled with provocation and contempt. She would accidentally stain the new books I had finally saved up to buy, and unintentionally tell my parents that I couldn't integrate into the new school and that my poor grades were holding me back, and would kindly point out the luxury brand labels I didn't recognize, explaining their exorbitant prices in a naive tone. Each time I tried to tell Mr. and Mrs. Gu about my grievances, I was met with appeasing words urging me to make peace. Jieli, Jiaojiao just has a childish temper. You're the older sister. Don't hold it against her. She's feeling upset. You should be more understanding. It's just a small thing. Forget about it. Dad will buy you a new one. A small thing. Those seemingly insignificant acts of exclusion, mockery, and favoritism were like tiny needles, densely pricking my heart. The most disheartening time was when I got into the best high school in the city through my own hard work, while Gu Jiaojiao barely squeezed in thanks to her artistic talent. At the parent-teacher conference, Mr. and Mrs. Gu spent the entire time surrounding Gu Jiaojiao's homeroom teacher, praising how well she danced and brought glory to the school. My homeroom teacher, the strict math teacher, took the initiative to approach them, wanting to talk about me, a potential top 10 student in the grade. But they just gave a perfunctory smile and said, "Jilly comes from a small place. It's good enough if she can keep up. Thank you for your hard work, teacher." Then they turned back to Gu Jiajiao's side. At that moment, watching the harmonious scene of the three of them, I felt like a complete outsider. Expectation, like the ashes of a burnt fire, gradually turned cold. I knew that in this family, I could never compete with Gu Jiaojiao, who knew how to cry, throw tantrums, and whisper sweet nothings, blood ties, in the face of affection. They were utterly vulnerable. So, when Mrs. Gu suggested sending me abroad to study, with the pretense of receiving a better education and broadening my horizons, I agreed almost without hesitation. I clearly saw the flash of smugness and relief in Gu Jiajiao's eyes. She probably thought that by sending me far away, no one could ever threaten her position again. Fine. I don't need this family anyway. Before I left the country, Mr. Gu had a serious talk with me, saying earnestly, "Jieli, study hard when you get there. Don't worry about the money. Dad knows you've been wrong these past few years, but Jiao Jiao is someone we've watched grow up. Your mom is soft-hearted. You should be more understanding." I looked at him. This man who dominated the business world, now carrying a hint of unspeakable weariness and guilt. I nodded, saying nothing. Understanding. Why should I understand? Why should your soft-heartedness be fulfilled at the expense of my grievances? But I didn't say anything. I just silently accepted the generous settling-in allowance and the 100,000 yuan monthly pocket money they gave me, and boarded the flight to the other side of the ocean. For 7 years, I was like a greedy sponge, frantically absorbing knowledge. I pursued dual degrees in finance and computer science, and then obtained a master's degree from a top business school at an astonishing speed. During the day, I immersed myself in libraries and laboratories. At night, I studied the global financial markets and used the Gu family's money to invest. At first, it was just small-scale testing, but later my judgment became more accurate, and my courage grew bolder. Stocks, futures, cryptocurrencies. I battled in the waves of capital. The numbers in my account growing exponentially, the monthly allowance of 100,000, and the comfort money they sent during holidays out of guilt, became my initial capital. I hardly bought luxury goods, didn't participate in pointless social gatherings, and invested all my time and money in learning and accumulating capital. Watching the numbers in my account steadily climb, an unprecedented sense of security enveloped me. This feeling of controlling my own destiny fascinated me. I no longer had to worry about not having enough to eat or wear. No longer had to open my textbook wearily to study after finishing all the housework Gu Jiaojiao deliberately left for me. I completely severed unnecessary ties with the Gu family, except for periodically reporting that I was safe and receiving remittances. I hardly ever called them proactively. Mrs. Gu would occasionally call, her tone always cautiously probing, asking about my studies, my life, and always eventually circling back to Gu Jiaojiao. Jiaojiao graduated. Jiaojiao started an internship at the company. Jiaojiao is dating. Her boyfriend is the company's promising young department manager, Lu Xiong. Lu Xiong. I had heard this name before. A man of ordinary origins but with soaring ambition, who had climbed the ranks of the Gu group quickly thanks to his outstanding ability and handsome appearance. It seemed that Gu Jiajiao's taste was only so-so, having chosen a carefully disguised phoenix intending to usurp the magpie's nest. Each time I heard these things, I would just give a faint without expressing any opinion. My world had long since been separated from theirs. Until half a year ago, Mrs. Gu's phone call rang again. "Jieli, Jiaojiao is about to have her third child. A son. The first 2 were daughters. So your father is very happy this time." You should at least come back for a visit, so the family can get together. On the other end of the phone, I was staring at complex financial models and data streams on the computer screen, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Hearing this, my movements paused, and a cold arc appeared at the corner of my mouth. A third child. In order to consolidate her position, Gu Jiaojiao was truly meritorious, and Mr. and Mrs. Gu probably felt that with a grandson, there would be someone to carry on the family business. So they were probably holding Gu Jiaojiao up to the heavens. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said calmly. "The research institute has a major project recently, and it's at a critical stage. I'm too busy to find the time to go back. Congratulate Jiaojiao and my brother-in-law for me." My refusal was crisp and decisive. Without the slightest hesitation, there was silence on the other end of the phone for a few seconds. And finally, she sighed and said, "All right. Then take care of yourself. And tell Mom if you don't have enough money." After hanging up the phone, I leaned back in my chair, my eyes gazing at the foreign sky outside the window. Busy, indeed. Busy, but not so busy that I couldn't even spare a few days to go back home. It's just that I didn't want to cooperate with them in performing that fake family reunion scene anymore, because I knew the time was approaching. The Gu group seemed large, but internal problems had long been deeply entrenched. Mr. Gu was getting older, and his thinking was conservative, and he had missed several important industrial transformation opportunities. As for Gu Jiaojiao and her gold-digging husband, Lu Xiang, one only knew how to spend and compete for favor, while the other appeared capable but was actually driven by quick success. In recent years, under the guise of reform, he has placed his cronies, excluded dissidents, shaken the foundation of the company, and invested in several seemingly glamorous but actually huge loss-making projects. I learned all this information clearly through special channels. The wealth I have accumulated and the offshore companies I have established over the years are like a large net, quietly acquiring some of the scattered shares of Gus Group that have been lost, and through complex financial operations, indirectly affecting his capital chain. What they owe me is not just material deprivation, but also emotional plunder and spiritual trampling. The suffering of those years of displacement, the cold eyes and favoritism suffered after returning, and the days and nights filled with grievances. I will recover them one by one, with interest. And now, it's time to go back and take everything back with my own hands. I picked up the internal phone and connected to my assistant. "Book me a flight back to China. Set the time around the time of the Gu family's daughter's third child's full moon banquet." "Okay, boss. Do you need to notify the Gu family?" "No need." I smiled faintly. "Give them a surprise." The plane landed, and I stepped on the familiar land, the air filled with a prosperous atmosphere. I didn't notify the Gu family and checked directly into the top standard suite of the city center's top hotel. I was not in a hurry to show up, but first met with a few people. One was the old minister of Gus Group, the deputy chief financial officer who was frustrated by Lu Xiang's exclusion. One was an anonymous informant who had key evidence of Lu Xiang using his position to transfer benefits. And one was a top private investigator in the industry. And I needed him to provide all the unknown wonderful details of Gu Jiaojiao and Lu Xiang over the years, with money paving the way, coupled with my accurate judgment and negotiation skills. Soon, the information and assistance I needed were in place, a net aimed at Gu Jiaojiao and Lu Xiang, and indirectly pointing to the Gu family's paranoid cognition, has been quietly woven. Gu Jiaojiao's third son's full moon banquet was held at the Gu family villa and was extremely luxurious. I chose this day, wearing a tailored suit, and drove alone. No expensive gifts, just a briefcase containing important documents. The villa entrance was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and guests were pouring in. My appearance caused a small commotion. Many people recognized me, their eyes full of surprise and exploration. After all, I the exiled true daughter who has been away for many years, have long been a vague legend in the circle. Mr. and Mrs. Gu obviously did not expect me to come. When they saw me, the smiles on their faces instantly froze. Especially Mrs. Gu, whose eyes were particularly complicated. Jieli. You. Why are you back? I smiled and said, the Research Institute's project has come to an end temporarily, and I was thinking of coming back to take a look. It just so happened to be Jiajiao's good day. Then, my gaze swept across the room, finally landing on Gu Jiaojiao and Lu Xiang, who were surrounded by everyone. Gu Jiaojiao was wearing an expensive custom-made dress, adorned with jewels and radiating a happy and smug smile. But upon closer inspection, a hint of fatigue and affectation was subtly present around her eyes and brows. When she saw me, her smile stiffened momentarily, then became even sweeter and more artificial. She released Lu Xiang's arm and hurried towards me. Sister, you're finally back. I've missed you so much. She opened her arms to hug me, but I subtly avoided her with a sidestep. Congratulations, Jiao Jiao, I said softly, my gaze drifting past her to Lu Xiang behind her. Lu Xiang certainly had a handsome appearance, dressed in a suit and tie. He was charming and elegant. He was currently looking at me with an evaluating and scrutinizing gaze. He extended his hand, his smile perfectly polite. Jieli. Long time no see. Welcome back. I didn't shake his hand, but simply nodded slightly. Manager Lu, I've heard a lot about you. The atmosphere instantly became somewhat delicate. Mr. Gu cleared his throat lightly, trying to smooth things over. All right. Jieli just got back and must be tired from the journey. Have a seat and rest. Jiao Jiao. Xiang. Go entertain the other guests. I took the opportunity to walk to a relatively quiet corner and sat down. Coldly observing this hypocritical spectacle, Gu Jiaojiao flitted among the guests like a butterfly, receiving compliments and subtly hinting at her contribution to the Gu family by bearing children and Lu Xiang's competence. Lu Xiang, on the other hand, mingled with the business people, chatting and laughing, acting every bit the successor of the Gu family. Mrs. Gu tried to come over and talk to me several times, but was interrupted by guests or Gu Jiaojiao. Mr. Gu remained with a few old friends, occasionally glancing at me with a complex expression in his eyes. Halfway through the banquet, the host invited Mr. Gu to the stage to say a few words. It was nothing more than thanking the guests, expressing his love for his grandson, and subtly mentioning that the group's future would be brilliantly renewed with the assistance of his son-in-law. Lu Xiang's usual platitudes. Just as Mr. Gu finished speaking, and the applause erupted, Lu Xiang straightened his jacket, preparing to go on stage and add a few words to showcase his successor style. I slowly stood up and walked to the front of the stage. All eyes instantly focused on me. I picked up the spare microphone next to me, and my voice, clear and calm, echoed throughout the banquet hall. I'm sorry to interrupt everyone's enjoyment. Since my family and all our relatives and friends are here today, I have something I want to say to my father, my mother, and my dear sister Jiao Jiao, and my capable brother-in-law Lu Xiang. Gu Jiaojiao's face changed drastically, and she subconsciously wanted to rush forward, but Lu Xiang grabbed her arm. Mr. and Mrs. Gus' expressions also instantly became tense. First of all, congratulations to Jiao Jiao on having another son. I looked at Gu Jiaojiao, my tone calm and unwavering. Secondly, regarding what my father just mentioned about the future of the Gu group, I believe that before handing it over to anyone, there are some issues that need to be clarified first. I opened my briefcase, took out the first document, and faced the crowd. These are copies of the final audit reports for several major investment projects handled by manager Lu Xiang over the past 3 years. The data shows that these projects have caused a cumulative potential loss of more than 500 million to the group. At least 2 of these projects bypassed the norm. our risk assessment process when making investment decisions. Furthermore, there is evidence indicating close non-business dealings between the project partners and manager Liu. The audience immediately erupted in an uproar. Liu Xiang's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Gu Jieli. You're talking nonsense. You're fabricating evidence. Whether it's fabricated or not. A professional auditing agency will soon be involved in the investigation. I glanced at him coldly and took out a USB drive. Here is an interesting recording about how manager Liu promised a certain director that he would transfer benefits after taking power. Of course. There is more evidence about his abuse of power to suppress dissidents and seize company resources. I have organized it and can submit it to the board of directors and relevant departments if necessary. Mr. Gu swayed, looking at Liu Xiang in disbelief. Then at me. Mrs. Gu was so shocked that she covered her mouth. Gu Jiao shouted. Xiang. She is slandering you. Dad. Mom. Don't believe her. She is jealous of me. Jealous of Xiang. Jealous. I chuckled, turned my gaze to her, and said coldly, Gu Jiao. Why would I be jealous of a cuckoo that has taken over the nest? Who can only rely on constantly giving birth to children to consolidate her position, and even colludes with outsiders to hollow out her own family business. A fake heiress. You. Gu Jiao trembled with anger. Anne. I interrupted her, took out the last document from my bag, a copy of an equity transfer agreement and bank transaction records, and said, this is an investigation into the flow of the 3 of the group's shares that my mother secretly transferred to my name before I went abroad 7 years ago, saying it was for my protection. Interestingly, this share, without my knowledge, eventually appeared in the name of an investment company controlled by Liu Xiang through a complex intermediary account. Can you explain this? My good mother, was it at your instruction, or did someone seize it by trickery? Mrs. Gu's face turned as pale as paper in an instant, her lips trembling. Unable to say a word. She had always thought that she had done this perfectly. It was a win-win solution that she, Gu Jiao, who was clamoring to enter the board of directors and feared that her position would be affected, and Liu Xiang came up with to appease Gu Jiao and let Liu Xiang work hard for the Gu family. She never expected that I would investigate so thoroughly. The scene completely exploded, and the full moon banquet turned into a shocking scandal exposure site. The guests whispered to each other, gossiping, and their eyes were full of schadenfreude as they looked at Mr. Gu's family. Mr. Gu suddenly looked at Mrs. Gu and Liu Xiang, his eyes full of anger and despair at being betrayed. Mr. Gu suddenly looked at Mrs. Gu and Liu Xiang, his eyes filled with anger and despair at being betrayed. He had been a competitive man his entire life, valuing face and family business above all else. Yet he was publicly exposed for his daughter and son-in-law's scandalous behavior at his own grandson's full-month celebration. Even his wife was implicated, which was undoubtedly a fatal blow. You unfilial son, unfilial daughter, you. Mr. Gu pointed at them, his blood rushing to his head, his body swaying backward, and he was hastily supported by those nearby. The scene was in complete chaos. I calmly watched it all unfold, watching Gu Jiao hysterically crying, watching Liu Xiang defending himself with a deathly pale face, watching Mrs. Gu weeping in a flurry of helplessness, watching Mr. Gu's heartbroken despondency. There was no joy, no sorrow, only a settled sense of peace. I walked up to Mr. Gu, looking at his face, which had aged considerably in an instant, and said, Dad, Gus Group is Grandpa's life's work. It can't be ruined by outsiders. As the largest individual shareholder, I will request an extraordinary general meeting to thoroughly investigate all issues and nominate a professional management team to take over the company's operations. As for family matters, you can handle them yourselves. After speaking, I ignored the chaos behind me and turned to leave. I knew this was just the beginning. What followed would be a long legal process, board struggles, and internal family purges. But I was not afraid. 7 years of dormancy and accumulation had long given me enough capital and strength. The full-moon celebrations farce temporarily ended with Mr. Gu being rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment due to anger-induced heart problems. The Gu family instantly plummeted from the clouds into the mud, becoming the laughingstock of the entire city. I, Gu Jieli, moved back into the Gu family villa, not as the true heiress who had to be mindful of everyone's expressions, but as the largest individual shareholder. The controller who was about to take over the company. I would live under their noses, watching them suffer, while Mr. Gu was hospitalized. The company was in complete disarray. Liu Xiang was temporarily suspended from his duties pending investigation. And the old foxes on the board were all harboring their own agendas. I wasn't in a hurry to make a move, just watching coldly, letting the bullets fly for a while longer. I needed Mr. Gu to fully recognize what kind of people his carefully selected successor and his spoiled daughter of over 20 years really were. Gu Jiaojiao obviously didn't have this realization. As soon as Mr. Gu was out of danger, she ran to the door of my temporarily occupied room on the 3rd floor, carrying her newborn son and weeping. Gu Jieli, you're ruthless enough. Are you not satisfied until you've forced our whole family to death? Her hair was disheveled, and she no longer resembled the elegant socialite she once was. If anything happens to Dad, it's all your fault. I slowly and deliberately applied hand cream, not even bothering to lift my eyelids. Who harmed him? Don't you know in your heart? If it weren't for your and Liu Xiang's wild ambitions to drain the family's resources, would he be this angry? You're talking nonsense. Xiang is doing it for the good of the company. It's just that those projects were unlucky. You're just jealous. Jealous that Mom and Dad love me. Jealous that I married well. She shouted hysterically, and the baby in her arms was so frightened that he began to cry loudly. Jealous. I finally looked up at her, a chilling smile playing on my lips. Gu Jiaojiao, what else can you do besides cry? Have kids and leech off the Gu family. Your Liu Xiang is struggling to protect himself right now. I have more than just the evidence of him transferring company assets that I showed at the full moon banquet. Tell me, if I hand all this evidence over to the economic crime investigation team, how many years do you think he'll get? The color drained from Gu Jiajiao's face in an instant, and the hand holding the baby trembled. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. I stood up and walked towards her step by step, looking down at her. And you, secretly selling Mom's jewelry for cash, and using fake invoices to transfer money from the company account to buy limited edition handbags. Should I discuss these things with Mom and Dad one by one? Or rather, with Mr. and Mrs. Gu? I had private investigators thoroughly investigate these old scandals long ago. I used to disdain mentioning them, but now it's time to bring them out as appetizers. Gu Jiaojiao retorted. You're slandering me. I didn't. You know very well whether you did or not. Too lazy to argue with her. I pointed to the door and said, get out. Don't make a scene here. And remember, I'm in charge of this house now. You and Liu Xiang better keep your tails between your legs. Gu Jiaojiao, intimidated by the coldness in my eyes, retreated in a mess, holding the crying baby. I knew she wouldn't let it go easily. Sure enough, not even 2 days later, Mrs. Gu came to me with red eyes, pleadingly. Jieli, Mom knows that Mom and Dad were wrong to you in the past, and Jiaojiao and Xiang did wrong things too, but things are already like this. Can't you just be lenient? Jiaojiao is still your sister, and Xiang is your brother-in-law, and that child is still so young. I looked at this birth mother, whose eyes were only filled with heartache for Gu Jiaojiao, and only calculation and exploitation towards me. I interrupted her. Mrs. Gu. First of all, I don't have a sister. Secondly, you have to pay the price for doing wrong. Even children understand this. Finally, instead of begging me, You should go ask your good daughter and good son-in-law how they plan to compensate for the company's losses. Mrs. Gu was choked by my words, her face alternating between green and white. Just then, my phone rang. It was from the hospital, saying that Mr. Gus' condition was stable and he wanted to see me. When I arrived at the hospital's VIP ward, Mr. Gu was leaning against the headboard, his face ashen, as if he had aged 10 years overnight. He looked at me, his eyes complex with guilt, anger, and, more than anything, exhaustion. Jilly, you know about the company's affairs. Yes. I sat down on the chair beside the bed, my tone calm. Not only do I know, but I also have all the evidence of Liu Xiang's suspected embezzlement and misappropriation of funds. Enough for him to stay inside for 8 to 10 years. Mr. Gu closed his eyes and sighed. I was blind. You certainly were blind, I said without ceremony. But now is not the time for repentance. Some people on the board of directors are already eager to take advantage of the situation. The top priority is to stabilize the company. I took out the plan I had prepared and placed it in front of him, continuing. I will join the board of directors as the largest shareholder and introduce a team of professional managers I trust. All you need to do is sign this power of attorney, allowing me to act as chairman during the period of fully handling the company's crisis. This is the only way to save Gus. Mr. Gu opened his eyes, scrutinizing me as if he were truly seeing his daughter for the first time. He saw the calmness, decisiveness, and powerful aura in my eyes, a strength he had never seen in the pampered Gu Jiaojiao. After a long struggle, he finally signed the power of attorney with a trembling hand. I knew he had no choice. When I returned to the Gu family villa with the power of attorney, Gu Jiaojiao and Liu Zi were blocking the door. Liu Zi, devoid of his usual poise, looked at me with gloomy eyes and said, Gu Jieli, you want to seize power. Not so easy. Dad is just confused for the moment. Whether he's confused or not, the law will decide. I waved the document in my hand and said, also, I'm informing you that, given your suspected damage to the company's interests, all properties, vehicles, and stocks under your names purchased with Gu family funds will be temporarily frozen to cooperate with the investigation. In other words, you may soon be homeless. What? Gu Jiaojiao exclaimed. You wouldn't dare. This is my home. Your home. I sneered. Gu Jiaojiao. Do I need to remind you what your surname is? Should I go check which urban village your biological parents are currently picking through trash in? These words completely shattered Gu Jiaojiao's psychological defenses. Her biggest fear was that her background would be revealed, and she would lose everything she currently possessed. She lunged at me like a madwoman, wanting to hit me. Gu Jieli, I'm going to fight you. I easily grabbed her wrist, flung her away with force, and she staggered and fell to the ground, wailing loudly. Lucy tried to step forward but was stopped by the 2 bodyguards I had brought. Escort them out, I coldly ordered, before the investigation results are out. Don't let them step foot in here again. Watching Gu Jiaojiao and Lucy being dragged away like stray dogs, I felt no ripples in my heart. This was just the beginning. In the days that followed, I reorganized the company with swift and decisive actions, purged Lucy's cronies, introduced a new management team, and stabilized the situation. After Mr. Gu was discharged from the hospital, although he regained some authority, he was greatly weakened by this blow, and the power of the company had actually fallen into my hands. Gu Jiaojiao and Liu Zi were not having a good time. With their assets frozen, Liu Zi faced criminal charges, and Gu Jiaojiao, with her child, rented a small apartment, running to the Gu family every day to cry and make a scene. But after this incident, Mr. Gu and Mrs. Gu, though still heartbroken for her, dared not indulge her limitlessly as before, and more often than not, avoided seeing her. That day, I represented the Gu Corporation at an important business cocktail party. Unexpectedly, Gu Jiaojiao somehow got her hands on an invitation and appeared, all dressed up. She had obviously put a lot of effort into her appearance, hoping to regain her former glory. But the fatigue and malice in her eyes were impossible to hide. She walked straight up to me and, in front of a crowd of guests, said loudly, "Sister, do you hate me that much? Do you hate me enough to steal everything from me? Even Mom and Dad's love? I know I took your place, but it wasn't my fault. Can't you leave us a way out?" She was trying to use public opinion and morality to blackmail me again. The surrounding guests all looked over, whispering amongst themselves. I picked up my wine glass, gently swirled it, looked at her, and said, "Gu Jiaojiao, you've got 3 things wrong. First, I'm not stealing. I'm taking back what was originally mine. Second, Mr. and Mrs. Gus' love never belonged to me, so how can I steal it? Third, a way out is earned, not given by others, and certainly not by stealing and cheating. You stole my life and deceived the Gu family for over 20 years, taking their affection and resources. Now, it's just returning to the rightful owner, and you bear the consequences." I paused, looked around, glanced at the onlookers, and finally fixed my gaze on Gu Jiajiao's pale face. "Also, let me remind you that I seem to have some clues about your biological parents. I heard they've been looking for you. They're having a hard time. Do you want to go see them?" "You." Gu Jiaojiao was trembling with anger, pointing at me, unable to say a word. The fig leaf she most feared was completely torn off in public by me, under the contemptuous or pitying gazes of the crowd. She could no longer maintain her composure, covered her face, and fled the cocktail party in disgrace. I took a sip of wine, the corners of my mouth slightly raised. This drama of the fake and real heiress should come to an end with my absolute victory. As for the Gu family parents' belated guilt, I don't need it. I have my own empire, and a free life where I no longer have to depend on anyone. That's enough. Gu Jiaojiao was publicly exposed by me at the cocktail party and fled in shame, becoming the latest laughingstock in the circle. But she obviously hadn't learned her lesson. Or rather, she had run out of options and could only desperately grasp at the last straw. That straw was her biological parents. I didn't expect that what I said at the cocktail party to provoke her would actually come true. Not many days later, a middle-aged couple, shabbily dressed, with wrinkles all over their faces and shrewdness and greed in their eyes, actually showed up at the Gu family villa's door. They were also holding a yellowed old newspaper with a blurred report of the hospital's baby swap news from that year. I was in the study talking to Mr. Gu when the security guard reported it. Mrs. Gu was also present, and her face immediately turned extremely ugly when she heard this. "Make them leave. What kind of scammers are these? Jiao Jiao is our daughter," Mrs. Gu shouted excitedly, instinctively wanting to protect the mother-daughter relationship she had cultivated for over 20 years. I chuckled. "Mom, let's meet them. What if it's true? It would be good to let Jiao Jiao acknowledge her ancestors." Mr. Gu remained silent, waving his hand wearily, signaling for them to be let in. As soon as the couple entered, their eyes scanned the room like searchlights, making no attempt to conceal their awe and greed at the sight of the luxurious villa. The woman, upon seeing Mrs. Gu, immediately knelt down with a thud, wailing and crying, "Mrs. Gu, thank you. Thank you for raising our daughter so well. We are Jiaojiao's biological parents. The hospital made a mistake back then, and we've been looking for her for over 20 years." The man also rubbed his hands together, his face obsequious as he said, "Yes, yes. We are Jiaojiao's real mom and dad. This girl really looks like her mother when she was young." Mrs. Gu trembled with rage, pointing at them and saying, "You're talking nonsense. Get out. Make them get out." Just then, Gu Jiao, having heard the news, rushed in and, upon seeing the couple, immediately said, "I don't know them. They are liars. Mom, Dad." Quickly chased them away. She clung tightly to Mrs. Gus' arm, as if it were her last lifeline. Seeing this, the rural woman immediately lunged at Gu Jiao. "Jiao, my daughter, I am your real mother. How can you not recognize us?" As she spoke, she reached out to grab Gu Jiao's hand. Gu Jiao violently shook off the woman. Hysterical, "Get away. Don't touch me. I am the eldest daughter of the Gu family. I am not your daughter." The scene was extremely chaotic. I sat on the sofa, leisurely sipping my tea, as if watching a farce that had nothing to do with me. Once they had argued enough, I slowly spoke up. Whether or not they are her biological parents, wouldn't a paternity test make it clear? Technology is very advanced now, and results can be obtained in a few days. Upon hearing this, the couple's eyes flickered for a moment. Then they said, "Do it. We're not afraid." Gu Jiao, however, seemed to have been drained of all her strength and collapsed to the ground. She knew in her heart that this was likely true. Her most dreaded nightmare had come true. The results of the paternity test left no room for doubt. Gu Jiao was indeed the biological daughter of the couple. On the day the report came out, the atmosphere in the Gu family villa plummeted to freezing point. Mrs. Gu held the weeping Gu Jiao, tears streaming down her own face as well. The biological parents, on the other hand, completely latched onto the Gu family, blocking the entrance every day, shouting that the Gu family had stolen their daughter and had to compensate them with huge childrearing fees and emotional distress fees, demanding 8-figure sums, or else they would take it to the media. Gu Jiao completely broke down. She couldn't bear the enormous contrast of falling from the clouds into the mud. And even more, she couldn't accept having such disreputable biological parents. She vented all her resentment on me. As for Lu Xiang, the gold-digging man, after learning that Gu Jiao was not the Gu family's biological daughter and that the power of the Gu family had fallen into my hands, realizing that he had completely lost hope, he became desperate and came up with an even more vicious trick. He hired some thugs from the streets, planning to create an accident on my way home from work, kidnap me, and then threaten me to hand over my shares or a huge ransom. Unfortunately, he underestimated me too much. I had been anticipating this move of his. My bodyguards are top-notch, and their movements are discreet enough. Before those thugs he hired could even get close to me, they were pinned down on the spot by my people, taken to the Public Security Bureau, and they conveniently exposed Lu Zi as the mastermind. With conclusive evidence, Lu Zi was directly placed in criminal detention, and what awaited him was the severe punishment of the law. When the news reached Gu Jiao, her last glimmer of hope was extinguished. She rushed into my office like a madwoman, her eyes bloodshot, resembling a lunatic. "Gu Jiali, it's you. It's all your fault. You caused C to go to jail. You made my parents disown me. You made my biological parents cling to me like dogs. You ruined everything for me. I'm going to die with you." As she spoke, she actually pulled out a fruit knife from her bag and stabbed it towards me. I was prepared and dodged to the side, easily grabbing her wrist with a backhand, and with a little force, the fruit knife fell to the ground. I looked at her coldly and said, "Gu Jiao, you and your good husband are responsible for where you are today. The life you stole will eventually have to be returned." I had the security guards drag her out and directly called the police to handle her attempted assault with a knife, although Mrs. Gu later pleaded with tears, saying that Jiao was just acting impulsively. I did not soften. In the end, Gu Jiao was sentenced to administrative detention. After this series of blows, Mr. and Mrs. Gu seemed to have aged completely overnight. They looked at Gu Jiao, whom they had raised with their own hands but who had brought endless trouble and shame. And then at me, who had returned strongly with ruthless methods, making them both in awe and unfamiliar, and finally understood what karma meant. They began to cautiously show goodwill to me, trying to make up for the past debts. I know how much of that is genuine, and how much is out of fear of the power in my hands. But it doesn't matter anymore. I gave the greedy biological parents a sum of money, enough for them to live a stable life in a small city, on the condition that they never appear in front of me or the Gu family again. They happily took the money and left. As for Gu Jiao, they obviously loved money more. After Gu Jiao's detention period expired, she was almost mentally deranged. Mrs. Gu secretly took her back to a remote apartment to settle down, but Mr. Gu made it clear that he would no longer let her return to the Gu family villa, nor would he give her any financial support. Her life completely fell from false prosperity into the real mire, and I, Gu Jieli, completely controlled the Gu group. With iron-fisted methods, I reorganized the business, divested bad assets, introduced new technologies, and revitalized this increasingly declining family business. I became a rising star in the business world, and no one dared to mention my neglected and replaced past anymore. Occasionally, I would visit the Gu family's villa. Mr. and Mrs. Gu would receive me solicitously, but there was always a layer of unmelting ice between us. The look in their eyes was filled with complex emotions, but I knew that it would never contain the kind of unreserved doting they had for Gu Jiao. But who cares? Standing on the rooftop terrace of the Gu family's villa, overlooking the myriad lights of the city, I took a deep breath. The wind here finally no longer carried the scent of grievance and oppression. Gu Jiao was confined in that small apartment in the suburbs, nominally cared for by Mrs. Gu, but in reality, she was under house arrest. Her mental state fluctuated. When she was good, she would frantically brainwash Mrs. Gu, crying about how innocent she was. When she was bad, she would smash things and curse, wishing me a horrible death. Mr. Gu, after a series of blows, was in much worse health than before, and he had basically handed over all company affairs to me. He would occasionally stare blankly at Gu Jiao's childhood photos, but when my cold gaze swept over, he would immediately sheepishly put them away, not daring to say more. Guilt. Perhaps there was some, but more than that, it was fear of the power in my hands. I thought this farce was finally coming to an end, but unexpectedly, Gu Jiao was able to come up with an even more disgusting big move. That day, as I was hosting an important multinational video conference, the secretary suddenly came in looking nervous and whispered, "President Gu, something bad has happened. Miss Jiao, she started a live broadcast online." I frowned, signaled the meeting to pause, and clicked on the tablet that the secretary handed over. In the live broadcast, Gu Jiao was wearing a cheap white dress, without makeup, sitting on the sofa in that dilapidated apartment, crying with pear blossoms in the rain. With a few so-called pieces of evidence in front of her, there were blurry photos of me working in the countryside as a child. Mrs. Gus passed transfer records to her, and even a photoshopped forced perspective photo that made me and Lou look intimately close. She faced the camera, tearfully accusing, "Dear netizens, I am Gu Jiao, the fake heiress in the recently sensational real and fake heiress incident. I admit that I took Gu Jieli's place. I am guilty, but I am also a victim. I grew up in the Gu family, treating Mr. and Mrs. Gu as my own parents. But after Gu Jieli came back, everything changed. She hates me. She not only wants to take back the family property, but also wants to push me to a dead end. She used means to send my husband to prison. She found a pair of strangers to impersonate my biological parents to humiliate me. She even seduced my husband Xiang. And when Xiang rejected her, she tried every means to frame him. She now controls the Gu group and has put my parents under house arrest, not allowing us to meet. I can't go on living. Please, everyone, help me uphold justice and let this vicious woman be punished. Her tearful accusation, which twisted black and white and was acted so skillfully, instantly detonated the internet. Fake heiress accuses real heiress on livestream. Gu Jilly vicious and other topics quickly trended on social media. Unsuspecting netizens were deceived by her image as a victim, and with the help of internet trolls pushing the narrative, my social media accounts were instantly flooded with insults. Some even started doxing my information, threatening to seek justice for Gu Jiao. Madame Gu immediately called, her voice flustered. Jilly, did you see the live stream? Jiao. How could she talk nonsense like that? What should we do? Those netizens are saying such awful things. I said coldly, since she chooses to humiliate herself, I will grant her wish. Hanging up, I immediately issued instructions. Have the group's legal department immediately prepare a lawyer's letter and file a criminal lawsuit against Gu Jiao for defamation. And contact the platform to immediately ban the live stream. Have the media and public relations companies I control immediately release the previously collected complete chain of evidence regarding Gu Jiao and Lu Xiang's embezzlement of funds, extravagant spending, and her biological parents' extortion attempts. Prepare to hold an emergency press conference. The live stream was quickly shut down, but the public opinion had already fermented, just as the internet was in chaos, with so-called righteous netizens supporting Gu Jiao and rational netizens arguing incessantly. The first wave of evidence I released was like a bombshell, instantly reversing the situation. Netizens saw Gu Jiao's records of buying millions of dollars worth of jewelry while crying about being poor, the ironclad evidence of Lu Xiang transferring assets, and the greedy faces of her simple biological parents demanding exorbitant sums. Public opinion began to turn. Immediately afterwards, I personally attended the press conference. Without unnecessary nonsense, I wore a sharp suit, faced the cameras, and said with a sharp and calm gaze, first, Miss Gu Jiao's livestream content is purely fabricated. I have entrusted a lawyer to pursue her legal responsibilities. Second, regarding Mr. Lu Xiang's case, the evidence is conclusive, and the judicial process is fair and transparent. There is no frame-up. Third, I have no private emotional entanglements with Miss Gu Jiao or her husband. The relevant pictures are maliciously fabricated. Fourth, Mr. and Mrs. Gu are well, and the group is operating normally. Gus Group reserves all legal rights to pursue malicious defamation and cyberbullying. My calmness, decisiveness, and powerful aura were in stark contrast to Gu Jiao's hysteria in the livestream. More importantly, the solid evidence I presented completely exposed her lies. After the press conference, public opinion completely shifted to my side. Gu Jiao went from being a victim to a scheming green tea BTCH that everyone was denouncing. Even those who had previously sympathized with her felt like they had been used as pawns and turned to more intense ridicule and attacks against her. At this moment, I gave Gu Jiao the final blow. I had my assistant send a document to her apartment. It was a copy of the agreement signed by her biological parents, which clearly stated that they had taken my money and promised to disappear forever. Also attached was the complete surveillance footage of them behaving scandalously at the entrance of the Gu family villa. When Gu Jiao saw this document and learned that even the blood ties she relied on had been easily bought out by me with money, and that the ugly faces of her biological parents were exposed, her last pillar of support completely collapsed. It is said that she went on a mad rampage in her apartment all night, smashing everything she could get her hands on. The next day, when Madame Gu went to see her, she found her huddled in a corner, her eyes empty, repeatedly muttering, "I am the eldest daughter of the Gu family. I am the eldest daughter of the Gu family." She went mad, truly, mentally deranged. Madame Gu cried and fainted several times, begging me to send her to the best mental hospital for treatment. I agreed, but on the condition that the Gu family completely severed ties with Gu Jiaojiao from now on, and that everything about her would have nothing to do with me or the Gu Corporation. Mr. Gu was silent for a long time, and finally nodded heavily. In the end, they chose to protect themselves, abandoning the daughter they had loved for more than 20 years. But who had brought endless trouble? I sent Gu Jiaojiao to a mental hospital with excellent facilities but strict management in the suburbs. The environment there was quiet and secluded, with dedicated caregivers. She could continue to live her dream of being the eldest daughter of the Gu family there, until she grew old. As for Mr. and Mrs. Gu, after this series of storms, they seemed to have been stripped of their souls and completely settled down. The Gu Corporation had completely become my kingdom. They lived in that empty villa, enjoying luxurious lives, but without the laughter and joy of the past. Every time I went back, they would be cautious. With an almost humble ingratiation, I got everything I wanted: wealth, power, dignity, and the revenge my enemies deserved. One afternoon, I passed by the mental hospital where Gu Jiaojiao was staying. She was dancing in the garden in her hospital gown, with a fascinated smile on her face, followed by a helpless caregiver. That was Gu Jiaojiao. I looked away, started the car, and drove to my own top-class apartment in the city center. In the rearview mirror, the outline of the mental hospital became more and more distant, eventually disappearing. My new life had only just begun, and those past grievances and entanglements, like the scenery in the rearview mirror, would eventually fade away and no longer trouble me in the slightest. End of full text.